Hello again, you're welcome to this class. Last class we talked about layer tools, so today we're going to have a look at the timeline. So the timeline is this portion of the screen here, and there are three major sections. As you can see, this is the main timeline, this is the sequencer, and this is the motion graph. Okay, so let's talk about the first thing. The first obvious thing is there is a frame 0, like I mentioned before. A frame 0 is where you draw all your artwork. So if I were to draw a shape, I'll draw this. Maybe I'll draw this as well. Okay, so that's my shape, right? Let's move it in place. Let's also adjust the anchor point to be at the middle part. Alright, so that's my shape. So on your timeline, you can create what they call keyframes. Keyframes are essentially values that store information like position, rotation, and almost anything in Moho can be animated. So I'll demonstrate that very quickly. I'm going to transform this layer. So let's go to our frame 1. Okay, I'm going to start off screen here. Then let's say at the 3-second mark, okay, it moves somewhere around here. You could see that it has created keyframes. Alright, so you can zoom in or zoom out by using this button, so I can see my frames clearer. Alright, so now you see that it has moved the shape in this direction, and you can see the value. Every translation or every movement has values that you can see up here. So you could see the positions of the translation, and you can also see that this is a layer translation. I could also do a rotation, so I'm going to come here, set the first keyframe, and then I come here, and then I click and I rotate it. Let's say maybe it should rotate like let's say 4 times 4, so that's 4. Okay, so we have 4 rotations at this point. So it comes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. You see? And we have 2 values now. We have translation and then we have rotation. So I think that's very interesting. That's literally what the keyframes are for. I could also adjust my keyframes. So let's say I want the rotation to end maybe before the translation. I could move the rotation here. So it plays, and when it gets here, it stops rotating and then it keeps moving. You see? So it's very powerful. A lot of use. So you can adjust your keyframes as you want. You just click and drag, right? I could also adjust my keyframes by using a very interesting feature, and that's the relative keyframing. Alright, so we have a very powerful feature, which is the relative keyframing. Relative keyframing is a way for you to add or adjust the values of multiple keyframes. So let's say I want to move the overall position of my ball. I'm going to select these 2 keyframes, and then I enable my relative keyframe. I want it to start slightly higher, so move it up, and that moves all of the keyframes. So now you could see this line shows you the line path. So when I play my animation, you'd see it does that. We'll also combine these values into one. So let's say we don't want to see these 2 as separate, which is the translation and the rotation. I could right click, and then I could consolidate the layer channels. That makes it 1. For easy reference. Okay, I could also go back and adjust it to make it 2 as well. That's what that does. We have all the values of our object, like I said, up here. Next up, let's have a look at the motion graph. The motion graph is a place where you can visually see the easing in or easing out of our animation. Let's move this up a bit. So this could get quite complicated, but I really want to be honest with you, it's not so difficult. We're going to dive deeper into this later on, but just know that the motion graph shows you the movement of your object, and all the values are very visual. You could zoom in or zoom out by scrolling in or scrolling out. You could also enable, we have our translation, you could disable it so you only have your rotation, or you could enable the other. And there is a lot of power in this motion graph. Another feature is that you could also mute several parts of your animation. So let's say I want to disable the translation of my animation temporarily. I could click this option, and that's going to mute that animation, so it's just going to rotate alone, so I could focus on this before going back. Alright, so this is for muting and unmuting. Next up, we have the onion skin. The onion skin, like we explained before, shows you the previous frames and the frames after. So this option here can help us adjust how far we see. So I could click a farther frame and see something way back, or I could also see something way ahead based on the things I click here. And obviously this thing follows the timeline, rather the playhead, so you'd see. We also have options for the onion skin. I could come here and adjust the settings. So let's say I want to see like a color onion skin, so you see it gives it color before and after. I could see only the outlines. I could disable this option, which simply means that when I move my playhead, the onion skin is going to remain static. Or I could also enable it back on, so it follows my playhead. We also have draw behind. Draw behind means that the onion skin is going to be drawn behind the shape, as you can see. So very cool features. I can also change the color of my before and after from these options, and I could clear all the onion skins from here. Next up, we have markers. So markers are simply a way to identify frames and maybe leave notes. So maybe I would say a marker here would say maybe end. I could enable this option. Document white marker means that it's going to be visible throughout my whole document. Most times that'll probably be on, so I'm going to press OK, and that's how that does. So the difference between document white markers and normal markers are, when I have a document white marker, no matter the layer I have selected, is always going to be visible. But this option, when it's not enabled, it only attaches itself to a layer, which I don't really recommend. But that depends on what you want. So yeah. So now we have this. I could move my marker around, so it's very powerful feature. So I think we've talked about the channels and then the motion graph. Next up, we have the sequencer. This is more or less showing us our animation in a very visual way, more like a video editor would show. And the main use of this is for adjusting the start and stop of our frames or our layers. Okay, so I could change it so maybe it starts from here. As you can see, this green stick signifies that. or starts around here. I could also make it stop maybe somewhere around here, like I said. Open up the settings and then you disable the visibility. Press apply and that gets chopped off. I think a very powerful feature is going to be the sound in the sequencer. So if I want to import a sound, so I'm going to go to this option, enable and import audio. So I'm going to import, and you can see that it imports first of all based on where my playhead was. Because my playhead was here, the imported file got started at this point. I could also move it around. Okay, I could adjust where it stops, where it ends. Let's say I want it to end here, so I could come here and it has been chopped off. I could also adjust the animation of the sound, so that maybe I want it to like fade, right? So like it gets lower as it gets to the end. I could come here and go to my audio level, and then maybe you see 1 means the normal audio level, so let's go with something like so let's start off with like would be 0.9. okay, then maybe here it's going to be 0, so let's do 0 from here. So when I play it, you see it fades out, and you could actually see visually where the keyframes are by going to the channels, and then you see this is the audio, right? And you can see that this is the audio level. So these are the keyframes I created, so I could as well see and adjust that. Alright, very interesting. I could also come here and say, okay, I want my audio to restart again, so maybe I could come here and select restart audio. So the audio is going to restart at this point. Alright, of course I have to go back and enable the visibility of this from this point, but you can see how powerful this really is. There's a lot to be discussed. We didn't really talk about some features as these options, interpolation options, but this is going to be very interesting when we go deeper into more complex animation. But this simply talks about what happens in between 2 frames. Okay, and then of course this is more for a very stylistic approach to our animation, but we're going to dive deeper into this later on. But these are the basics of the timeline, and the next class we are going to talk about some of Moho's drawing tools. So I'll see you then.